the issue of Fadak is, again, a very, very controversial topic between the different narrations and different views. The land of Fadak was under the ownership of the Prophet, which he had received after the Battle of Khaybar, I believe. And upon his passing, it was meant to be, well, it wasn't even before, upon his passing, it was being run and was a substantial source of income for the Muslim Ummah at that time. It was not only a very substantial amount of income that was coming, but the funds were being distributed to the needy. And while the family of the Prophet were living a very simple life during that whole process, at the time of her father passing away, Fadak becomes a very hot topic for everyone, and the land is then denied to Fatima under various grounds. What's your view on the ownership of the land of Fadak before and then after the passing of the Prophet?
So I always join the Fadak issue to the other issues, because I think Fadak is one in a series of events that take place in an attempt seemingly to marginalize Lady Fatima and push her to the sides. And I think there's reason for that. I really do. But so I joined the Fadak attempt to those famous meetings, the Saqifa and the other meetings that took place immediately after the death of the Prophet, while the Ahl Bayt was occupied with a far more pressing issue, and that was the preparation of the Prophet for his burial, which should have been the only issue at that moment, not who's going to succeed. That would come later. The Prophet was being prepared for burial, and while the family were doing that, these other groups were meeting and were beginning to manipulate history already. So for me, it's a series of events. Now, let's remove the name of the Prophet and of Lady Fatima and all the other names. If you were to stop any intelligent person and tell them the story, but just use other names, about a girl who is denied her rightful inheritance the moment her father dies, and about a group of people who gather together at the moment of somebody's death, and before anyone has time to do anything, they start manipulating history. If you were to tell these stories without mentioning names, any intelligent person would tell you an injustice has been done. If you were to tell anyone, any intelligent person, about an attack by a group of men on a house in which were present women and children, trying to force something that was not their right to force, but didn't mention any names, any intelligent person would agree that that was a great act of injustice. The moment you add the names Lady Fatima and Ali, then of course it becomes a polemical thing amongst various Muslims. But take the names out, and any intelligent person who has any knowledge of law or justice would say, what a terrible, wicked thing to have done. So I, as an objective outsider, having read all the texts available, at least the ones I know of, the history and the hadith, I have no doubt that Fadak was a great injustice to Lady Fatima. And it was more than that, it was a petty action. It was a small and petty action against a young girl who had just lost the thing she loved most in life, and that was her father. It was an unnecessary attempt to push her to the side, despite the fact that she is the only surviving child of the Prophet of Islam. And I find this continues to amaze me, that it wasn't some cousin of his or some distant aunt who was being ill-treated, but his own daughter. How is that explicable? It's inexplicable in the history of Islam. So I have no doubt that Fadak was her rightful, and it was stolen from her, I have no doubt, and that it was just one in a series of events in an attempt to push her to the side and not permit her to influence events as they unfold.